Oh, there we go. We are live. We are live. Yes, this meeting is being live streamed and recorded and everything. Bina will be here in a moment. She just had to take care of something real quick, which is quite marvelous. That Bina is going to be here. I think that's Bina now.
Live?
We're live. We're live, Bina.
Yeah.
We're live.
Okay.
We're live.
Hello. Hello and welcome everyone. And today, even before doing live, we started discussing, and that was really profound. And Sil says that, oh, this topic is so interesting, and it's supposed to be, we need to discuss this during live. Of course, we are going to discuss it. Last time we stopped our live on when we were discussing about Lucifer. Lucifer, uh, different generations, different part of the world, different ideologies have different understanding of Lucifer.
Yeah.
I personally feel that most common is that he or they were brightest one, the brightest one,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
this is something that mostly people agree on. That was the one, and
Yeah.
Lucifer means also light or light bearer, I guess.
Yes,
These are the meaning.
exactly. Exactly.
And light means, in an abstract concept, we all agreed on that light means awareness, knowledge,
Yes.
and Lucifer in the way of impeccability and moreness, and especially on Nobelia. Lucifer is an exemplification of good, not always nice.
Yes.
It just projects
Yes.
that it was not nice, of
Yeah.
course, but the purpose, what they were doing, the implications were good, are good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is something I personally feel not only it is transformative, but it is also very freeing, if I'm pronouncing it right. This idea
Yes.
is
Liberating.
liberating.
Yes.
Yes, this idea is so liberating. Once we get out of this idea of having that fixated mindset that good needs to be in that particular way only, bad needs to be that particular way only. This 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 grading always put us in big trouble. We miss out so much in life. We miss a lot of moreness, and also we literally hurt so much in this world. I'm not saying that okay, physically or emotionally only, but we hurt the moreness of this world. We hurt and damage the potential moreness which can be ours. We hurt that too. We damage that just because of this fixed ideas of that good has to be in this particular criteria, it has to match with this, bad needs to be like this, and this is why we get into trouble also. And that is why this the book still has written about the BMNs. It is so necessary to understand, it is so crucial to understand that bad is also not comes in that particular idea, the typical idea of bad people, bad things. They come in a very nice package also. So we need to understand, we
Yes.
need to go to the core. And it goes to the other direction also. That good is always not come in nice packaging. It has
Exactly.
nothing to do with the niceness. And this is what we were discussing, and this is what we are going to discuss. And Sel is going to share and elucidate. more onto this topic.
Yes.
This is super exciting for me. I'm in a bit lowish energy, not because that the topic is not interesting or I'm not interested in this. Just that I'm having this headache, a
Oh.
bit of stiffness, and the headache, which is giving me. Maybe it is just reminding me that I need to pay more attention to my body and my physical being.
Oh.
That might be the reason. Possibilities are endless. Any reasons could be anything. Okay, but I'm
Yeah.
just focused that I just need to be a bit more relaxed, a bit more um, generous towards my physical existence also.
Yes.
So I'm going to
Yeah.
be on.
And not just generous, but compassionate.
Yes. I was saying generous because I need to give more time to this, more resting time or something like this. But yes, compassionate, absolutely. I'm going to listen more. Of course, I'm going to share and ask
Yeah.
questions, but I'm going to just sit a bit quiet here today.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And this point too about Lucifer and this viewpoint shift, right? Where Lucifer is seen as this great evil, this great horrible thing, typically in the world, right? As an agent of evil and bad. The new nobility,
Yes.
they say, wait a second, how does this work? How can there be bad in the universe? Well, first of all, they examined it in its context, right? The original myth of Lucifer comes from a religious context. And in that religious context, and before I elaborate, let me interrupt myself. The
Mm-hmm.
new nobility, as part of their impeccability, they practice deliberately thinking appropriately. Yes, not just thinking, but behaving, acting, etc. Right? Which means if you are going to be appropriate, and appropriateness is key to everything they do, they practice the philosophy of appropriateness. It's not an idea, it is a way of living, which means they are constantly asking and questioning, is this appropriate? Is this appropriate? Is this appropriate, right? Am I being appropriate, right? It's constant, constant. Every single thing they do, they think, they feel, they behave, they walk, they talk, they sit, their attitude, mindset, posture, stance, everything, always being considered as appropriate. Now, in order to consider what is appropriate, we need to determine context and motivation and mute as appropriate. Yes?
Sorry. Sorry. Sorry.
That's all right. Give me an opportunity to say mute as appropriate. Right. We have to understand, though, in the
Yes,
context, right?
yes.
Right.
I was assuming that I'm on mute.
No, all good, all good, all good. Whenever we do anything, we have to decide whether it's appropriate in the context, because, of course, certain things are appropriate in certain contexts, but inappropriate in other contexts. And depending on what you want to do, it may be appropriate or not, right? You have to consider this. Now, in this understanding of appropriateness, this constant assessment of appropriateness, the evaluation, determination, and awareness of context becomes automatic and innate after a while. So now when the new nobility look at this myth, and they like myths because they want to understand the full context of where we are at. And we are somewhat a consequence and a product of what came before. Therefore, in order to understand ourselves, we look to the past. We look at our influences, we look at our roots. And part of our roots is, of course, mythology and religion. Therefore, when they look at this and they come across this myth of Lucifer, they say, wait a second, wait a second. This doesn't add up here. It doesn't make sense in context. In context. The context of the myth of Lucifer is, of course, a religious context. Within that religion, right, it says God is all powerful, God is all good. How can Lucifer then be evil? This is a great conundrum that has plagued theologians and religious scholars and just religious people in general, right? They can't reconcile this. If God is all good and God is all powerful, how does God allow evil? The problem is in their inability to perspective shift to multiple perspectives. They cannot conceive, they don't have enough belief, right? And in this, the new nobility fault them to say, oh, ye of little belief, right? And ye of little faith. They don't believe enough in the goodness. So they cannot see that what is apparently evil is actually good in some way. It's not good in its consequence, in the actual physicality, in the lesson. It's a hard, tough, unpleasant lesson, obviously, sometimes. But when it in the context of awareness and the enhancement and development of awareness specifically, now it changes everything. Now those bad things, they are things to learn from. They say, well, when we see the evil of war, for instance, hell's bells, society, earth, everybody learn to not have wars, for heaven's sake. Like duh, 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 duh. See? So as an awareness lesson, there's always good. It's not always pleasant. Lucifer is the same way. Lucifer isn't necessarily like, when people say, oh, bad things, oh, that's Lucifer. But if you actually look carefully at the myths of Lucifer, Lucifer doesn't go around just causing trouble, like, making a train derail or something. And people say, oh, that's the devil's work. No, that's absolutely not anywhere in Lucifer's job description, right? If you really look carefully at the myth. Lucifer, and you see this in the context of the Job, for instance, right? And in other religions too, right? Lucifer is a tempter. That's Lucifer's job, is to tempt you, to sow seeds of doubt, and to essentially put your impeccability to the test. This is Lucifer's job. Lucifer will exploit your knuckleheadedness. Lucifer will exploit your foolishness. Lucifer will exploit your indulgence, your crappiness, your nonsense, your foolishness, your idiocy, all of the stuff, right? So if you're doing stuff that you know you shouldn't do, right, that's where Lucifer is going to basically assist you and help you. Why? Because this is the most good thing that can be done, or one of them. When I believe something is sensible, but it's actually foolish, yeah, how do I learn differently? Only by discovering this. But if I'm very fearful and I don't end up doing anything, now I'm stuck. Okay, by being fearful and not doing things, I protect myself from doing foolish things, but I also prevent myself from doing sensible things. Right? Now we have to act. We have to do in order to get anywhere. Yes, that's very important. So Lucifer says, go on, let's see. You've got all these desires and they bury deep in you and you don't trust them, you don't believe them. I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna help you fulfill these desires that you kind of know are bad, but yeah, you're not sure. Right? You just think. All right, so we actually get you to actually do it. Now, once you do those foolish, stupid things and you see, this doesn't work, now you know for a fact the consequence of those foolish decisions. See the value of it from an awareness point of view? I mean, if you can't work it out for yourself that it's foolish in the first place, if you have to learn like by direct experience, well, so be it. For some people, that's absolutely necessary. They have to learn from direct, hard experience. They can't just simply figure it out and trust their own
Yeah.
logic and sensibility. And that is important because you do need,
Yeah.
at some point, you need some facts to back up your thinking, right? You can't just go on everything on faith, on belief. And this is
Yeah.
another point. I'll jump in one moment, Bina, one more sentence. Furthermore, this myth, this story, this understanding is about understanding that belief is risk. It's deep in the psychology and understanding and the philosophy and everything of the new nobility. They are acutely aware that belief is risk. When you believe something, no matter how strongly you believe, it is potentially not so. Yes? And if it's potentially not so, then you're going to believe and it turns out to be wrong, and then you could potentially be in trouble. Yeah, 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 yeah. This is very important. This is very important. That's very, very, very important. Now, of course, when we really understand that belief is risk, then we seek to minimize belief. And in this understanding of the myth of Lucifer, we have this big cosmology, this overall philosophy that everything is there for the purpose of the development and enhancement of awareness. Does it matter where it comes from? Does it matter that there's a thing behind it, a deity, whatever? No, it matters nothing, because I'm going to enhance my awareness and that's it. I'm going to use what is the world around me. How it came about doesn't matter. I don't have to believe in anything in order to actually do this, because the facts of it are that as I look around me, I get the benefit of taking everything as a lesson for enhancement of awareness, and my awareness does enhance and develop. I get that benefit. Doesn't matter whether I believe or not. I get the benefit. It's just a fact in the end. So now you can set aside the beliefs, right? And now this understanding of Lucifer becomes a choice. It becomes a way of looking at the world. Does it matter whether it's true or not? No. But is it useful? Yes. Very, very much so. Hello, Norma. Hello, Norma. It's an absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Now, Bina, please share what you were saying, and also share about Lilith, since Norma has brought that up, and how Lilith fits
Mm-hmm.
into everything. Since we're talking about myths, right? And you shared about Lilith in your post, in your moon text, which is,
Yes.
it's again, see, astrology is very much about belief, but
Yes.
your particular take on astrology is you share in such a way that whether you believe or not doesn't matter. You sharing things that are valuable, perspectives, understandings, awarenesses, everything, shift, change, think about something, remember something, and be aware of something, bring something into cognizance. Does it matter whether you believe or not? No, all of those things are useful. Yeah? And that's your focus here. Now, share about the myth of Lilith and how it applies, potentially applies, or how we can apply it, whether or not we believe it's got anything to do with the current moon or not, doesn't matter. How can we utilize the myth of Lilith in the same way as the new nobility utilized the myth of Lucifer to help them understand that not everything that appears to be a certain way is in a certain way? And I want to add, this myth of Lucifer, it applies in a small context to camellias. Not only from the external point of view, like Biella's point of view, or the aspirants or the delegates, but if they were able to see that, Biella does, right? But also from internally to camellias. He sees himself as a benign Lucifer who's misunderstood in the world. It's going to come through later, right? It's a very, very, very big deal. This little part of the chapter, it seems like it's a retreat, and it's not a big momentous, it seems like it's just filling in space there. But boy, oh boy, is it important. Yes, massive, massive, massive. Lots coming, very sophisticated. All right, please share, Bina, please share, please share.
First, thank you so much for bringing this topic of belief is a risk. It's actually taking a risk, which is very interesting. We never think of this something like this ever, but all beliefs are risk. And yes, you give a completely different perspective to this. Now, coming back to, because I really want to know more about this. Lilith is a dark feminine side. When we say dark, we assume that it's going to be all evil, bad, and all these things. But dark is when we say something that, okay, when I'm reflecting outside, of course we have light here, but when I'm reflecting inside, it's dark there. Why it is dark? Not in the conventional meaning of dark, because my internal understanding, awareness, innately is not influenced by any external stimulation. It's organic. It is there. It is innately, it is not. Yes, when we get into this, then yes. But it's still that the word, I think that we all are aware of this saying that, oh, your inner voice always tell you the truth. Your heart always tell you the truth. Everything inside you is dark, is hidden because it is protected to not get influenced by other things. That's why.
Wow.
So the dark feminine side, yes, the feminine side of moon is all nurturing, giving, protecting, loving, yes. And the other side, the other reflection of moon is Lilith. It's raw, it's dark, it's rebellious. It is about protecting as appropriate, not protecting in just nurturing and all that, protecting in as appropriate. It shows what is hidden. It reflects on. When it comes to confront, when it comes to progress, it shows that feminine side, which is kind of rebellious, which goes outside of norms, to think outside the box. Of course, it is up to us how we actually perceive it, how we take our perspective on that. But it gives you that drive. That's why people say that, oh, it's chaotic. It is going to chaos. It is going to be chaotic because every progress is chaos. Every growth is chaotic.
Wow. Wow. What a profound
You cannot
perspective.
be this,
Yes.
you cannot grow without a chaos, without disruption, without being uncomfortable. The moment we get birth into this planet, the moment we take our first breath, it's chaos, it's uncomfortable, it's absolute discomfort. It disrupts, it breaks, and so much more happen in those moments. It has started with that. So every growth, every progress comes with the chaos, with chaotic thing. So the Lilith always gives us that drive to connect with what we really want. We get scared on because we are so attuned, we are so educated to not show, to not acknowledge those things. Instead, we are just like, okay, no, it's not. Denial is not a cure.
Denial is not a cure. Oh, what a nice quote.
Never.
Wow.
Denial is not a cure. So if I'm having some wishes, some desires, some in religious terms, some temptations, denying it can be like really, can he going to be cure that? No. Understanding can lead to a cure. Acknowledgement, and for understanding, we need to acknowledge that it exists. Lilith is someone who actually is that energy which never hides those things. And it just I like, okay, yes, it is what it is. Like our shadow side. Our shadow self, for me, is just the aspect of ourself which doesn't understand the idea of appropriateness. That's it. Appropriateness, of course, it's a profound idea. It's a profound philosophy. It is all connected and learned from this world in this context. But your shadow self, or the Lilith in this case, is not actually connecting with this thing. And they just lack in the sense of appropriateness. Because for both of them, this idea of appropriateness is a learned behavior. And they don't want to. They simply acknowledge what it is. Lilith, whenever, of course, Lilith is always in play. My understanding of astrology is completely different. So I'm not going to say, oh, now Lilith is in play. She or that energy is more prominent, more visible, more active, but it is always there. Those planets never goes away from like, okay, yes, okay, now the Venus is in play, and I'm going to just
Fine.
go out of this
Just more
galaxy.
or less. Yeah.
Exactly. Shift of role, shift of perspective, shift of intensity. That's it. They are always there. And as in Syl's word also, this new moon in Leo, mostly people say, okay, oh, this is my sign, this is my moon sign, this is my sun sign, this is my ascendant, so I'm going to have that. No, it doesn't work like this. If my,
Oh,
okay, it's a bit technical, but if I am Gemini sun here, and my ascendant is something else, and my moon is something else. If I'm counting from the Gemini, so Gemini, Cancer, Leo. My third house is Leo, and third house is about communication. Third house is about my interaction with the regular people, my neighbors, my relatives, my siblings, and my communication. These major things, a lot more, but just major things. I am, though I'm not Leo, but I'm going to act like Leo when it comes to these things. My communication, I'll go more dramatic. When it comes to my siblings, I'll be more protective. Like, oh yes, I'm the one. I'm the leader here. This is how these things work. Everyone is Leo. Everyone is everything in the chart. This new moon in Leo, I use this. I leverage this understanding of astrology just to connect with the energies right now more actively in play. That's it.
wonderful.
So Lilith is about this. Lilith is going to help us exactly like we have fire in our kitchen, we have knives in our kitchen.
Exactly.
We are
Tools,
going to,
tools,
yes,
tools,
yes.
tools.
Lilith
Yes.
is going to give us that drive to
Yeah.
really, that courage to come out and accept that this is what I really want in my life. Okay, yes, for
Yeah.
on obvious reason, on practical in practical world, this might not be feasible to do, and okay, what will come out of it? No, it is just about you yourself. Be really truly selfish here, and address yourself, connect with yourself, and address those things which you actually never have that courage. Lilith and Sun, our
Yeah.
Leo, is going to give you that courage, that energy, that drive. Leverage this energy, use it. And by initiating, it doesn't mean that okay, you have to just do something really big. No, just
Yeah.
getting some piece of paper and some colors and try to draw something which you were doing before. Maybe you don't need to be Picasso. Nobody needs to do anything or hombre or Bazaar or write books like that. We can do anything. Just initiate that. So you can say to yourself that I tried. I understand what you really want, and do it for yourself, not for any appreciation from external world. Do not even try to create a masterpiece. Sometimes
Wow.
just one dress. I actually know some people who might have like thousands of dresses in their life, like really big, huge thing. But that one dress, which she was thinking that I want to wear, she never get a chance to, and that is still sticking with her. Still,
Wow.
after many decades of her life, she's still thinking about that. Oh,
Yeah.
I
Regrets.
was
Yeah.
trying to do that. Yes, somebody said something, and I said, okay, yeah, no, it's not appropriate. It was not possible. It was not appropriate. All sorts of things. That one dress, even though they had thousands. of throughout of life, their life. I can count, maybe, okay, if not
Yeah.
thousands, maybe just
Hundreds.
1,000 or some, okay, many hundreds.
Yeah.
but
Lots,
but
in other
just
words.
just
Yeah.
few things, very small little things in life. I know someone who just said that I I was desperate to get married so my husband can give me a flower bracelet, and that's
Huh.
it. It was the whole idea. That was the whole idea for her to getting
Oh.
married, and then and it never happened.
Oh.
And that was the most deep secret wound for her. And when she was sharing, she was crying like crazy. And I asked her, "Did you ever bought it for yourself?" And that was a moment of silence. For
Wow. Yeah. Wow. 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 But
simple thing,
yes.
less than $50. Mm, the total cost of those flower
Yes.
precious bracelets.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah. 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 Now let's take this, what you're sharing, your story of this bracelet, your story of Lilith, or your sharing on Lilith, your understanding of Lilith, and the new nobility's perspective on Lucifer. And we say, why does it matter? And it's always the man that gets blamed. Exactly, Norma. But, everybody is responsible for themselves. And this is my point that I'm making here now, about to make. When we look at things from the new nobility's perspective, what do they strive continually to do? They strive constantly and continually to see things from the most overview perspective that we can. To say, why does this matter? Well, it gives me this and this. Why does that matter? Well, there's a bigger picture. And they go to the biggest picture. All of these things have something in common. All the stories that you shared, the Lucifer story, what they have in common as the full overview is independence of being. Why does it matter when Lucifer comes and tempts us? When Lilith brings out all those dark energies within us and we run wild with them and do whatever? Why does it matter when that woman didn't buy the bracelet for herself? Because she had no independence of being. When we get tempted by Lucifer, we have no independence of being. We believe the foolish nonsense that Lucifer tempts us with. It's always foolish nonsense, but we buy into it. Why? Because we have inside us not yet said, I am sensible enough to decide for myself. Right? If you look at all the stories of temptation, right, with that involve anyone, whether they be in religion or in literature or wherever, that all those people that get tempted by foolishness, right, and they get promised this and that and other, do they ever in the end actually benefit? No, they get a short-term benefit. In the end, they always cry and unhappy and miserable, and their lives are ruined. Yeah, or at least temporarily, right? I think I'll start again. My point is that this whole idea of temptation doesn't work. Yeah, it absolutely doesn't work. You never get that benefit that you think you're going to get, right? And the reason is because of your inability to decide for yourself what is sensible. No self-trust. If there's no self-trust, there's no independence of being. Cannot happen. Yes, that woman, she had no independence of being. She believed that her happiness was dependent on getting this from someone else. Independence of being, I'm in charge of my happiness. I'm in charge of my decisions. Yes, and this is absolutely critical. When we understand all of these things, the commonality between Lucifer and Lilith and that woman, your example, it's independence of being, right? When we get tempted, it's just foolishness. We can't think
Exactly.
for ourselves. We have no independence of being. I'm influenced. I'm pressured, right? Peer pressure. Oh, come, let's all go and, do binge drinking, get, I don't know, whatever nonsense people get up to, let's go and steal stuff or whatever. How many people go along with that simply because they don't have the independence of being to say, no, this is right, this is wrong, this is no good, right? And they end up doing foolish things. It's the universe telling you acquire independence of being. As Bina is so fond of reminding us in Bina's wonderful story, right? And sharing about Sophie. We just call it the Sophie story, but it's a Bina story. Bina said, I will not be influenced. But said Bina in her magical sophistication, she says, I will be maximally receptive. You say, wait a second. How does that work? How can you be receptive and not be influenced? The two go together and they're very subtle in their connectivity. To choose not to be influenced is to exercise your independence of being, which means whatever's coming your way, you're receptive to it, means we are open to the possibility of it being maximally good and sensible. And no matter how good and sensible, you don't automatically take it in. That automatic taking in is influence. No, you have the independence of being to check it, every single thing, even if all of it is good and sensible, all of it ends up going in. You run it through your antivirus first to say, is it potentially nonsense? And therefore, it becomes your choice, whatever you take in. You've determined its validity. You haven't said it's valid because it's coming from somebody else who you think is valid, some authority. No, you are the one who are saying it is valid. Doesn't matter where it comes from. This is capital R receptivity. Capital R receptivity is that you are open to it being potentially the most profound thing, but you have to have that absolute exquisite understanding of influence to say, just because it's sensible doesn't mean I can accept it without making it my own first. I have to make it my own first. Then I can take it in. Right now, it's not influence. Now it's me making a conscious decision to add to myself. In other words, when I make a conscious, clear decision, a choice, I'm adding to my awareness. Capital C choice is the same thing as enhancing and developing awareness, right? Go together. But we need independence of being for this. This is the criteria. Any fool, any foolishness, anybody who's tempted ever by the devil or influenced by Lilith or affected by Lilith energy or whatever, right? Always at root, they don't have independence of being. Yes, they're unable to process, to decide, to distinguish, to discern. Why awareness, discernment leads to understanding, and why understanding is so key, because understanding, of course, leads to application. And we can do, we can act, but there's a basis for it, not just belief, which is, if I go around believing everything, I get into trouble big time. Yes. I mean, this is you might as well say the definition of a fool is one who too easily believes or inappropriately believes. Yes, right, Bina? An
Yes.
inappropriate believer is a fool. Same thing. So we have to be very, very judicious when it comes to our believing. When we understand believing to be risk, it all changes. It all changes. Yes,
Exactly.
all changes. Yeah, exactly. Trust. In other words, Norma says
Exactly.
trust, right? And trust, unless they're helped, yes, but help has to be appropriate rather than help. It has to be assistance. The universe doesn't help us because help is me doing it along with you, or doing it partially with you. Yeah. But when I'm assisting you, you doing it and I'm just assisting. You the key agent. Right. So assistance is the key. And the universe assists us. It will never help you in a way that we typically understand help, because if I help you to dig a hole, you digging and I'm digging, right? You sharing it. But if I'm assisting you, I say, here's the spade. Maybe, okay, dig a bit there, dig a bit there, assisting. You're the one who's doing the actual digging, not me, right? But this is when it comes to decision making, learning, growth. We can only get assistance. We have to do it for ourselves. When it comes to awareness building, cultivation of independence being, yes, we can get assistance, but not help in the ways. Now, many people mean assistance when they say help. I did say trust. Yeah. I did say trust. Trust in when it comes to independence of being. We can't have independence of being if we don't have self-trust. How do we get self-trust? By developing our ability to be aware, our ability to discern, our ability to understand, and our ability to apply. Yes, through doing, through testing, through checking, through discovering, through making mistakes, learning from them. This is how we build self-trust. Yes. And also, in the context of Lilith and Lucifer, it is the one thing that we have to trust is our understanding of integrity and thus ethics. There's a red line, there's a boundary, there's a border around us at all times. Yes, when I get tempted with something, for me, I have an acute awareness of that red line, right? And where it's now, according to me, that's unethical, that's wrong, it will, disrupt my integrity. I will not cross that line. Under no circumstances will I cross that line. I've never done it all my life, and I've been exceedingly thankful for doing so. I'm very fortunate and lucky that I have this acute awareness of it. So does Bina, yes, and it's never crossed it either, at least not that I'm aware of, right? But I've seen others cross that line, doing what they know they shouldn't do, but doing it anyway. That's temptation. When you do what you know, not as nothing to do with what society says. It's personal. It's very, very personal. Yeah. That's a very critical thing. And when you do that, the consequences are never positive. You might get some short-term benefit, but never long-term. Yeah. And that's where we learn. Yes, you may cross that thing once, and then you basically pay the price for it. But unfortunately, people don't see the longer term because they always live in the bubble of now. And so they get the benefit, and then they just remember the benefit. They don't remember what happens afterwards. I mean, it's fascinating when you look at people who get drunk, for instance. At least in their memory, they have some benefit of it in the short term, but they always forget about the hangover, and then they repeat it. And not just the hangover, but while they're drunk, at the end of it, falling down, lying in the street floor, whatever, puking on yourself, being terribly sick. They forget all this. It's fascinating because of belief. The belief that what they are doing is cool and wonderful and supposed to be the best thing either. But it must be. And they repeat the same foolishness over and over because they believe somebody else. They don't actually look at the reality of what they're doing. That's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. This is the power of independence of being. You can end up doing these most idiotic things and really ruining your life because you're just believing other people and you get caught up in belief. Right? So do what's right according to you. This is a fundamental imperative of impeccability. It's exactly what impeccability means. It's doing what's right according to you and your conscience, not right according to anybody else, according to you. Yes, that's your best use of energy, because if you do the things that go against your conscience, you always pay for it big time, big time, big time, big time, because you are making a hole in your integrity. Right? And you might as well be on a ship and say, well, I'm going to make a hole in the ship. Yeah, okay, a little bit of water comes in. Yeah, big deal. We're not going to sink because of a little hole there. Yeah, but they have enough holes and then you will sink. Correct? Not only that, but over time, that water coming in will slosh around in your bilges there and start to rot and stink up and cause all sorts of problems and basically make an unhealthy ship. But also, it's when you think of a literal ship, right? This analogy is really powerful. That water in the bilge, what happens when the ship, like in an old sailing ship, and the ship starts to lean when the wind blows? What happens to the water at the bottom? It goes on the side where you don't want it, correct? And it makes you tip over even more. So when you compromise your integrity, you also affect your ballast, your balance in life. Yes? And therefore, when you become more vulnerable to being tipped over by the wind of life. Yeah, when like I was saying, literally a sailing ship. It's okay when it's calm, and the ship and the master's in the center. It's upright, right? And the water's now in the middle of the bottom of the boat. It doesn't affect the balance anyway. But as soon as that boat leans over a little bit, all the water rushes to the wrong side of the boat, and it aggravates the very thing that you don't want. Right? You're already being tipped by the wind. Now the water rushes to the wrong side and tips you over even more, and sometimes turns you upside down. Yes. And this is the same thing when you compromise your integrity. You make yourself more vulnerable to negative influence. Yeah? Does it make sense? My analogy makes sense?
Absolutely.
Independence of being thus and being uncorruptible is absolutely critical. We don't see it because, like I said, a little bit of water here and there, all right, you say, I can deal with it and maybe we can pump it out. But how much energy do you have to spend to pump out all that water that you're letting in through the holes in your integrity? Yeah. For most people, that the equivalent of pumping out in the real world is BS, lying. You have to lie to cover up the foolishness. You have to pretend that it didn't exist. You have to deny it. You have to do all the stuff, which is all BS, right? And BS is ridiculously expensive. It's pumping all the time. And eventually, look at the people that are chronic, like narcissists, chronic BSs, yeah? They got pumps all over that ship, boy, and they are just pumping for all they're worth. Every single action in their life, pumping, pumping, pumping to keep the ship afloat. What a horrible way to live. What a horrible way to live. Yes, lots of facets. Yes, lots of facets. Now, one of the key points of independence of being, in order to acquire it, we need another key perspective. That is long-term versus short-term. Overview perspective. If we always in the bubble, that's just a classic another definition of the fool. Right? If you're in a bubble, you can only see now. You get tempted by the thing, but you don't see the bigger picture. You just get the now is what tempts you, right? That's the key. If you want to have independence of being, develop your awareness to see outside your bubble. Look longer term, look bigger picture. The moment we start to see bigger picture, no, it's not a problem. I'll give you an example of a story, right? So there's this young boy and, at school, it's just first year of school. And he hears kids talking and, like, oh, like kids speculate, what if, right? Kids love playing what if. Like, oh, man, wouldn't it be cool to be locked inside the sweet shop? Right? The older kids. Yeah, that's what, I mean, have you heard this,
Yes.
Bina? Have you heard this?
Yes.
You
Oh,
heard?
yes. Yes.
Right.
Been there. Been there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Wouldn't it be cool to be locked inside the sweet shop? Lo and behold, for this young boy, this actually happens. Now, it's in a department store. And believe it or not, back in those days, the department stores closed for lunch, right? Whole great big department store
Okay.
closes for lunch, everybody goes. But because the young boy was small, he got overlooked and they went for lunch and they just assumed that, kids typically didn't, kids almost never in that society at that time were out and about on their own. This was exceptionally, it was a complete anomaly, right? So they never even imagined that there could be a child left there, right? Because all the adults left, of course. And well, that's it. You close the door, everybody knows it closes, and they'll leave. I mean, no adult would stay there over lunch, right? It was just unthinkable. Nonetheless, yeah, the boy finds himself locked in the department store over lunch. Go to the sweet counter, the sweet section, right? And they had a big sweet section, right? In the bins with all the sweets and everything, right? Like you see in a sweet shop, but in the same thing in the department store. The full bins with all the sweets, like an open, not even
Yes.
in, yeah. All right, so he goes. Oh, he remembered what the older kids had said about this, right? In the sweet shop. So off he goes to the sweet shop with this idea. But then he gets to the sweet shop, and it's like, oh, now overview perspective. Luckily kicked in, right? He says, yeah, but is this the right thing to do? First, he thought, at least he was aware that those sweets in the bins, right? Nobody was counting how many sweets there were. And he could eat, an hour's worth of sweets and nobody would really notice that they were missing, if you spread it out, unless he ate from one bin, I guess, right? So first he had this understanding that this was a crime he could commit and completely and utterly get away with it. Right? There are no cameras in
Yes.
those days. It didn't exist, right? So there was absolutely no consequence. There was no possible way anybody would ever know that he'd eaten. But he said, I'd know.
Wow. Wow.
He said, I would know. It doesn't matter that I can get away with it. I'd know. I'd have to live with this. Yeah.
Wow.
And he couldn't eat the
Wow.
sweets, despite that bubble. But because he looked at the bigger perspective, luckily, whatever, it was just in him, I guess, a carryover from some other time and awareness. Who knows? But he said, no, I'd know. And that even though that the boy said he could get away with it and knew without a doubt that he could get away with it, he says, but I can't get away with it with myself. It's just a lie that I'll be telling myself, think that this is, yes, the other kids may have thought it to be good and right, but there's still a wrongness to it. I'm still stealing the sweets. There's no way around that, right? No matter I can get away with it, doesn't make it right. So he went, and what did he do? He went to the woman's clothing department, and went, and when the time came up for the hour now, the lunchtime hour, and he hid inside one of those circular clothing racks, right? And then all the people
Mhm.
come in, they didn't see him, and then he walked out, and then he left, right? Because if they did see him, this is likely where, well, they would assume that he got separated from his mother, because, well, this, mothers go to the women's clothing department, right? He went as far away from the sweet department as he possibly could. Yeah, because he didn't want to have,
Wow.
because he knew if he was discovered there, nobody would believe that he had not eaten the sweets, and he'd get into trouble for eating the sweets that he didn't eat if he was anywhere near the sweet counter.
This is so key of this thing.
Yeah,
Sometimes we assume that just being good or doing good
yeah,
is enough. No, you
yeah,
have to
yeah,
go a bit
yeah.
further. Not just being
Yes,
good, but staying to stay
yeah,
good and
yeah,
positive.
yeah,
You
yeah,
have to preempt those
yeah,
potential threats which might come in your way. Because if that would happen, that okay, in his innocence, he will say, okay, yes, I haven't done anything. And now what's the point? Because I know someone who was not aware of this, and when they were not doing anything. So it was like, okay, so why to hide? Why to do anything about it? Because that was the assumption that the way they are thinking, other people also think like that, but
yeah,
actually not.
yeah,
And that awareness was necessary, because then those some incident become like a backlash instead of just
yeah,
should be taken as positive. And that stays with them, that oh, I was not clever enough to deal with this thing.
yeah,
It shatters, it breaks your self-trust, it breaks your trust in humanity, it breaks your trust in positivity, and it breaks your trust in many other ways also.
yeah,
So
yeah.
preemptiveness is very, it's a big, huge skill to
Yes, Norma.
understand, to connect with the bigger picture. So profound.
Yes,
So profound.
yes, yes. I love you, Norma. What you did as a child, there's no point to it. Now, I will make a statement, and then I will proceed to explain why my statement is likely true. You say, well, first of all, let me go to the previous. Well, all right, I'll do it in reverse order. When you say I was a thieving child, I will make the statement that you were a thieving child because you were a profoundly good person. Now, how does that work? I was thieving. How does that make me good? Because in that same culture that I was in, those boys who were talking, by implication, right? They didn't think of, if you get alone in a sweet shop, this is opportunity, go crazy, eat all you like. This is what you should do in that situation. Now, if we aren't born adults, like some are, yes, and we are a child and we don't have independence of being, we believe those, especially older kids. Boy, if there's ever a source of corruption, it is older children. Most of the nonsense we end up believing comes from older children, like in this case, right? I saw other kids, the younger kids, and they absolutely, oh, okay, if I ever get locked in their minds, you can just see it going there. If I ever get locked in the sweet store alone, then I must eat my full. I must eat my full. It's what you're supposed to do, because the way they were telling the story and this idea, it's like, man, this would be the best thing ever. Right? This would be the coolest thing to do. There was no discussion of wrong or right. This was just about what you would do in that situation. Those weren't bad boys. They weren't there. We didn't say, oh, these are like criminal hooligan boys. Like, later on they were. And then you understood, well, no, thank you very much. You might think that's cool, but not me. No, these were just regular good boys. They all went to church on Sunday like everybody did, right? And therefore, that those little kids thought this was what they should do should the circumstance arise. And as children, many think that stealing, like shoplifting, is part of being a child. When I came here to America, somebody said, "Oh, they were telling a story, and like when we were out hanging about, and as the teenagers do, shoplifting. I said, wait, what do you mean, as teenagers do? I said, I never had that as a teenager, and not any one of my teenager friends would have considered shoplifting to be normal. In that society that I grew up, this was just totally impossible. I didn't know one of my friends, not a single one, right, that did this. I mean, and there were, at least my regular friends, they were like, a boy was a bad boy who came from us, like he came from the reform school. Yeah, he did this, but it was certainly not normal. He was the unusual, the exception, right? So I'm saying what's normalized in some cultures doesn't necessarily mean it's right, simply because it's normalized. However, if you have a deep goodness, what does goodness make you do? It makes you do what you should do. And before we have enough awareness to decide for ourselves what is right and appropriate, we just do what a should is. We believe should is a valid good. Sadly, it's not. So I'm saying, Norma, likely this would be my speculation, and I feel very strongly that I'm correct in this. That you stealing things as a child was because you felt in some way you should do it. In other words, you were being good, but inappropriately so. And when we look at good people, and especially when they don't have this independence of being and an awareness of what's going on, yeah, when they're in a bubble awareness, we see inappropriate application of goodness. It happens over and over and over. And as I've told many people, your problem is not being bad. Your problem is being good at not knowing how to deal with your goodness, like in this case. Yes. I don't think this came from you being a bad person. You weren't
Want to
looking
add
to
something?
harm anybody or hurt them or be mean or nasty. Go ahead, Bina.
Right.
That's why I love you so,
Sorry.
Norma. That's why I love you so,
Go
because it
ahead.
comes from your goodness. Comes from your goodness. I
Just
don't
want to
hold
add
it against you.
something.
Go ahead,
We were
please.
discussing. We were discussing about Lilith, and what Lilith is actually that energy, that being. that She never understands or follows any rules,
Yeah.
and in her understanding, when she wants something, she can take it.
Yeah.
She never understand that there are some rules, that oh, this belongs to this belongs to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why I was saying that this energy, we can use it appropriately, because it gives us that
Yeah.
drive, that fearlessness of having things in especially in childhood. People are just they just know that okay, what they really want. The focus is super concentrated and really sharpened, so they cannot see much. Of course, it is not for everyone. Some children are different, but some are not. Mostly they just know that okay, this is what I want. If they get consumed by the fantasy, by the idea of having their thing, they don't pay attention to the appropriateness. And sometimes they are even before the age of learning the appropriateness. Okay, it's a common thing. I'm just saying that, okay, not for some anomalies who were never been actually a child, but some, mostly other people are. When they're a child, they don't have this thing. It's a very focused vision they have, like the colorful ball, and that's it. All
Mm.
they will see is a colorful ball. What is coming between them and that ball, they might not even acknowledge that. It could be a pet, it could be anything. They just don't do that. And some people I know really well, they still have this thing. When they get consumed by any idea, when they have something, they are just single focused, single minded people. They cannot see other things. And it's not about being bad or good. It is just about that their focus, their attention is different than other people. Their learning process is different. I know many people. I was there, Norma. I can now say it without any hesitation. I was there. I was super, super regretful about. I was feeling guilty of that why I was not able to understand those things. But when I go back and then of course with so many discussion with Sil, he shared a lot of practice. And of course, so many discussion with Gaia. She shared a lot of perspectives. And the conclusion was that first, I was not aware of those. Some words, some ideas were beyond my understanding. I was living in a very protective environment. So for me, it was like, oh,
Outside, not
that's it.
beyond. Outside. It's a little different.
Yes, outside. Yes, yes. Outside my understanding. I never heard this word of or the idea of stealing. It was not
Yeah,
part of my understanding. I
exactly.
never heard of that. So because for me, like we were living in the house, and then I shared many times itself. It was anomalous. Now I feel that it was anomalous because
Yeah.
even with our house help, we had drivers, we had other people who were living in a house, but there was no idea.
Yes, we can.
I never heard this word of this stealing.
Yeah,
Everything was just like we're sharing. We are sharing
exactly.
things or not even sharing. The things are there and you are using.
Yeah,
So it was
yeah,
all
yeah,
going as appropriate. For me, it was not part of my understanding. And but
yeah,
later on, when I saw some consequences of this, I was like, okay, I embarrassed myself. I embarrassed my parents. And it was not even an idea in my mind that I'm doing something.
yeah, yeah,
The realization was really harsh. The
yeah,
realization was really dense.
yeah.
But
Very big life
now I
shift.
don't feel any regret. I don't feel that
Yeah.
because now I enjoy that innocence that some people live in a very thick bubble. They don't know what's going on there.
Oh
And
yeah,
also
oh
that
yeah,
not
oh yeah,
only
oh
me,
yeah.
but my
I'm
parents
coming to you,
also.
Norma.
Uh, they never think of that they have to give me or be my siblings this idea of disease. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Oh no, no, go ahead. I just wanted to let Norma know. I'm gonna keep going. I just popped it in there as alongside you, and then
Okay.
I will answer her.
So
Keep
it
going, keep
was
going.
sometimes we need to make the obvious really obvious until
Yes,
it's obvious because
yes,
in my parents' understanding, why to focus on those things which are not, of course, not nice, not
yeah,
appropriate to do, and they never did that. So for me,
yeah,
for us, it was all come and discuss. Like when
yeah,
I
yeah,
use the bad words according to my sculpture, I
yeah,
learned some bad words from my school when I was coming back, and I use it very
yeah,
proudly.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Nobody
yeah.
said any word. No one, even my brother, my mother, no one says anything. And they all were like, okay, like normal. Okay, nothing happened, nothing. And after dinner, at dinner table, of course, my father, my mama, definitely, she told him, and he asked me, okay, Bina, what happened? And after my whole story of my day, and he says, and what else? And I said, oh, and then I had a fight with my elder brother. He says, okay. And then I proudly repeat all those words. And because he asked me, yes. And he says, but from where you learn? And I said, oh, I know that when people fight, people say things like that. And he says, from where you
Wow.
learn this? And I said, outside my school gate, three boys were fighting with each other. They were
Wow.
saying to each other. And he
See how
says,
kids learn, yeah.
yes. And he says, but Bina,
Yeah.
this is not good. And I was super keen to know why these
Oh,
words are not good because I know what's the meaning of those
yeah,
words.
yeah.
And I was giving hard time to my father. Just tell me what is the meaning of these words. And I was keep repeating, and every time I repeat, and he was like getting more red and blood.
love the story. Keep
Sometimes,
going.
sometimes he things like that. So,
Yeah,
and for me, if you have to convince me to not do, you have to go in detail. Tell me
yeah,
why. What
yeah,
is this? And
yeah,
I still
yeah.
I am
Back
like
it up,
this.
back it up,
Norm,
back it up. And don't ask me to believe, in
norm,
other words. Right, Veena?
yes.
Norma, you did something. See how courageous you are.
Oh,
How
too
open you
wonderful.
are. Now you are telling, now you are sharing
Yeah,
openly that, okay, this
yeah,
is what happened. Because now you understand that what was happening at that time was different. The me of
yeah,
now and the me of then,
yeah,
we were different people.
yeah,
And it
yeah,
was coming out of innocence.
yeah,
Yes, of
yeah.
course, me. I'm saying innocence because
Ah,
temptations and everything just came and we just follow
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
we
yeah,
follow birds and try to fly like them, and or
yeah,
butterflies, exactly like every other thing. Anything, or yes, some people like literally go, some children, and then they try because they know some consequences involved, but still they get super tempted by that idea and they want to do this. Okay, yes.
yeah.
So what? So what?
Exactly.
Yeah,
I,
this is very interesting for me.
it is. It is. Let me respond to Norma's earlier statement question.
Yes,
She says,
yes,
when I was talking about the stealing, right, and the
yes,
inappropriateness or appropriateness of it. Yes,
yes,
but if he was starving, could or should he have taken cake when Baker not looking? Here's the lesson from this, from the new nobility point of view. It is not about answers, but about questioning the question. This is a very common point that comes up. Yes, if you're starving and then it's okay to steal. It's just people wanting to justify their desire to steal, and they find an excuse. And because if it's appropriate, if it's okay in one circumstance, then maybe okay in another one, right? It's just kind of a squirmy way of doing it. The question is flawed. Well, first of all, my triple Virgo says, starving child, don't steal the damn cake, steal the bread. Because if you literally are starving, if you eat a cake, you're likely going to get very sick and make it worse because the cake's not very nutritious. So don't be foolish and steal a cake, steal a bread, right? All right, just for some fun. But the point is, even stealing the bread. Here's the question. Why do it when the baker's not looking? Have you in your life ever heard of a story where a literally starving person came to somebody and says, hey, I'm starving, do you have some food for me? And the person said, no, go and starve. If a starving person approached you and asked you for food, what would you do? Wouldn't you give them food? Of course. Right now, there may be some mean and horrible people who don't, but it's not going to take you much to find somebody who will, right? So first of all, we don't need to steal, we can just ask. Right, so there's this assumption in that point, that question that you asked, and it's a common point, Norma. It's whenever stealing comes up, this point comes up. Yeah, but if you're starving, then it's okay. No, it's not. Go and ask, for heaven's sake. Right now, as an ethical person, Norma, if you were literally starving, and you came across people and they were also close to starving, and they had a little bit of food and just enough to keep themselves from starving and not dying. Would you steal it from them to say me over you? No, you wouldn't. You'd say, well, there's not enough for all of us. That's too bad. All right. And if I have to starve, I have to starve. Your ethics won't force you to essentially steal from them, which would be the same as committing murder. Correct? You wouldn't do it. All right.
hmm.
Now, furthermore, let's take this to another extreme and say, yes, but what if you can't ask? All right, I'm got lost in the desert or in the wilderness somewhere, and I'm starving, and I come across a farm. Yes, and the farmer and his family, they all went into town, or she and her family, they all went into town, and there's nobody on the farm. And well, I get there early on a Saturday morning, and I know they're likely going to be away all day, and by the time I wait for them, then I might be dead already. Well, now am I stealing, or am I saying I'm going to avail myself of the hospitality they likely would extend to me? Yeah. Of course, I'll eat, and I'll just eat enough, and then I'll wait till they come back and say, look, I'm terribly sorry. I was starving. And there's it. I assumed that you would extend this hospitality to me. Now, they might not. They might be very horrible, negative people. I get into trouble. But so be it. I'm willing to take that chance. And of course, if they are typically good people, they're going to say, we understand. No problem. It's all right. Now, did I abuse their hospitality? No. It's just enough that was necessary. And then likely they're going to invite me to eat some more. And there you go from there. My point is this idea of the necessity of stealing. No. There are many, many other options. And if you live with integrity, the universe will usually help you out, that you're not forced into such quandaries. Yes, they don't have to be. And of course, if there is, like in that case, it's appropriate for me to take the food. Am I stealing or am I availing myself of the assumed hospitality? See, it's a different mindset. Yeah, and different logic, a different understanding.
Yes.
My point here is question the question these assumptions. Like that question, yes, if you're starving, is it okay to steal? No, it's not. Just go and ask, right? The question is flawed. It's based on this assumption that people are trying to make stealing okay because they want to get away with it. Furthermore, hanging to your point, we are different people. And I will love you no matter what, doesn't matter, because I know you're a good person, Norma.
Okay, just
Right?
a minute. Just sir, I'm just going to eat. I'm
Oh,
listening.
okay. Okay. Well, I'm going to end the live in a second. If you can wait just for the last point here. Yeah. And
Okay.
Norma says, can we ever do enough good things to erase the bad things we have done? Absolutely. It's not about quantity. It's about true change. If you are going to honor your bad acts properly and appropriately deal with them, the only remedy you have is to become a person who could not do those things anymore. That's how you do it. It's not about quantity of good things making up. No, that doesn't matter. Change, become a different person, somebody who cannot do it. Now, let's assume that you've done something really horrible to me, and I say, wow, you know what? You completed you can't do that to me or to anybody else again. Then I'm going to say, well, at least some good came out of it. And see, that's how you honor it. That's how you make right what was wrong, by changing completely and utterly. Can you do that now? No, you can't. You can't steal now. You can't do horrible things now, right, Norma? So you've changed. Yeah, that's because you always were a good person. You were just doing inappropriate application of goodness. That's the core. Understand that, and your whole life will change. You were never bad. You were just inappropriately good. Yes. On that note, we'll end the live. We'll end the
Yeah.
live.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you,
All right.
Norma. I love you, Norma.
Absolutely. Yes. Love you deeply, Norma.
Okay.
You're a wonderfully beautiful person, Norma. Don't ever doubt that.
Yes.
All right. See you tomorrow.
And
See
what
you
a brave
tomorrow.
person you are. What a courageous person you are.
Yes.
Okay.
You're magical,
Okay.
magical,
Yeah.
magical. Bye-bye.
Bye for
Bye-bye.
now.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Yes. Bye-bye.